Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. We have a snow day today. We've had so much snow all week and it's super cozy, and it is snowing outside right now. I don't know if you can see it through the windows, but yeah, it's just beautiful. Everything is blanketed in snow. So I figured I'll record a video for you today. I just tried to do it on my new iPhone and I had to give that up because I can't get the mic to work. I had to order like this cord extension from Apple, or this like converter or whatever, since they changed the plugs on the iPhones now, which is a little annoying, but hopefully once you get all the plugs and stuff updated, it'll make it a better experience. I don't know. Anyway, today I wanted to talk to you about how I manage my ankylosing spondylitis. I am not currently on any medication for it, so I am in remission, thankfully. If you don't know my story, I would recommend you go back to the video I just posted last week about the FAQs, the FAQ video that I did. And there I talk about my story, my background, how I was diagnosed, when I was diagnosed, and all those kind of questions. So make sure to check that out. But short version, I've had ankylosing spondylitis for 10 years, currently in remission, thankfully. And I just wanted to talk today about the management strategies that I use and a couple of products that I found really helpful. So I have 5 things that I want to discuss with you today. Number 1 is sleep. Number 2 is nutrition and fluids. Number 3 is reducing stress. Number 4 is exercise. And number 5 is pain management. So these are not in order by any means, but it's just 5 kind of pillars that I wanted to touch on. And these 5 things are part of my daily management. First off, sleep. So sleep is going to be really important when you have AS. So you want to make sure that your bed is set up properly. You have the appropriate support. So for me, I tend to need a firmer mattress so that my spine and my hips and everything is kind of aligned. If I sink down too much, it just starts to create these pressure points, and it's very uncomfortable for me. So I have to have a kind of a firm mattress. So might be different for you, but just find one that makes you be able to sleep properly, right? The second thing is pillows. So I'm a big believer in sleeping with multiple pillows. And one of my biggest recommendations, this was life-changing for me, is getting a body pillow. So I have one of these straight ones. They're like this long, probably, if you can see this on the video. And like this wide, so it's almost like a person. My husband hates it, and he refers to it as like our third person in our bed, because he like has to wrestle with it. It's like such a big pillow. But that thing it saved me. So it just helps you. So I'm a side sleeper, and if I sleep on my side normally, like my shoulder, my top shoulder sinks in, my hips are kind of not in line, and I get a lot of low back and hip pain. And my SI joints, if my SI joints are painful, then it's horrible to try to sleep, right? But if I sleep with a body pillow, I can put my arm on it, and then I also put my leg on it, and it just helps everything stay in one line, which is super helpful. And especially when I had my SI joint problems a few years ago, where I just felt like my whole hip section was super rickety and unstable and was about to fall apart, basically. If you've had inflammation in your SI joints, you know what I'm talking about. But that was life-changing. Getting a body pillow is something I would highly recommend. And again, especially if you have SI joint issues, because it just helps to keep those joints in your hips kind of stable as you sleep. Another thing you can try is different kinds of neck pillows, right? So whether you try a flatter one with a lower profile, maybe you try sleeping without a pillow, a higher one of those specific neck pillows from like Tempur-Pedic, or the most recent one I got is almost like a half moon pillow, or it's like square on the top and then it's like a half moon on the bottom. So it has these little ends almost, right? And it's from Sleep Number, and I love that thing because when I sleep on my side, I can stick one of those little ends under my neck, and it's just really, it doesn't like crank my neck up or anything. It's just like some gentle support, and I really like it. I've only had it for about a week, but I really enjoy it so far. So play around with different pillows. So to summarize for sleep, make sure your mattress is the correct firmness for your body and what feels good for you. Invest in a body pillow. You don't even have to spend that much money on it. I think they have them at Target, or if you want, you can buy a Sleep Number one or a Tempur-Pedic one, which tend to be more expensive, but they're like memory foamy, like jelly, super cozy ones, but a total personal preference. And then the third thing is the pillow. Find a pillow that works for you. Play around with, you know, low profile, high profile, firm, not so firm, different shapes, different, you know, neck supports. Maybe try sleeping without a pillow, especially if you're a back sleeper. Sleeping without a pillow is really, really nice, especially with ankylosing spondylitis, because it kind of helps you to not have that kyphosis curve, right? It flattens you out a little bit, which can feel pretty nice. All right, so on to the second thing is nutrition and fluids. So again, I'm not gonna go in too much about nutrition here. I talked about it in my previous video too. Basically, there's no one size fits all. You might thrive on a vegan diet, which is no animal products. You might thrive on a vegetarian diet where you still eat eggs and milk, but no like meat. You might thrive on a carnivore diet where you only eat meat, and you might thrive on a gluten-free diet. You might thrive on a Mediterranean diet. You might do really well with a low starch diet or a keto diet. So I personally don't follow any sort of like diet per se. I try to eat as much whole foods as possible. I try to eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, nuts. I do eat meat. I used to be vegan, but I started adding in meats again. I eat a lot of seafood. I tend to eat a lot of leaner meats, so like seafood, chicken, things like that. I do eat red meat a couple of times a week, maybe, like spaghetti and meat sauce, and maybe I share, you know, I have a little piece of a steak that my husband eats. I feel like it's good for iron and stuff. So I think it's so different for different people. So starches, the low starch diet seems to be a really popular one for people with ankylosing spondylitis and other kind of inflammatory conditions. Personally, starches don't bother me. So candy is my biggest vice. I love candy, and sugar tends to be really bad for inflammation. And I don't feel great when I eat a lot of sugar and candy, but I love it so much that I'm still gonna eat it. I don't eat it every day. I eat it like on the weekend, so probably 3 or 4 times a month maybe. Yeah, I don't feel great when I eat it, but it's worth it to me because I love it so much, so I don't care. So maybe you have stuff like that as well, where foods that don't make you feel so great, but you eat it anyway, because I mean you have to live too, right? For me, drinking a lot of water is really, really important, and so I don't drink anything except for coffee, tea, and water. So I have a cup of coffee, a large cup of coffee, in the morning with some oat milk in it. And then I only drink water for the rest of the day. In the afternoon, I have herbal tea, turmeric tea actually, to help with inflammation, with some honey and oat milk in it. And then I just have water the rest. And so this actually, this nifty little bottle here, it's like the size of my head. It's a gallon water bottle, and I love this thing. So I bought this actually like a month ago. I'll link it down below as well for you. I have a really hard time gauging how much water I'm drinking, right? So I'm like, oh, that must have been, you know, I think in liters because I'm Swedish, but I must have hit 2 liters at this point. So a gallon is almost 4 liters actually. But anyway, I just have a really hard time keeping track of how much I'm drinking. So I bought this water bottle. I think it's like $20 off of Amazon. And it's life-changing because all I have to do is fill this thing up in the morning and then finish it and then fill it up again the next morning. So it makes it super easy to keep track of my water intake. So I'd highly recommend investing in one of these. It's like $20 on Amazon, and I really, really like it. So would highly recommend it. The third thing that's part of my kind of personal management strategies is reducing stress. So this is a really tough one, and especially if you have a full-time job and you have kids or whatever you have going on. Stress is just part of everyday life, I feel like. But if you can find moments of stillness and moments of relaxation throughout your day, it's super, super, super beneficial. And I can't remember the studies now, but I read a couple of studies linking stress and your nervous system to inflammation, and how reducing stress and kind of tapping more into that rest and digest nervous system versus your fight or flight system can really help reduce your inflammation. So reducing stress is really, really important for us with ankylosing spondylitis. Some of the things that I tend to do is I get up really early in the morning, and then I sit down and I read my Bible and I have my cup of coffee and the fireplace is going. My husband is working out, my dog is sleeping on the couch with me, and I just like sit there for probably an hour. It's just time for myself, where I relax and I get to gently wake up, and it's just such a nice start to my day. I don't check my phone for probably 2 or 3 hours upon waking. So I wake up at 4 in the morning, I do my Bible reading, my coffee, and then I make breakfast for my husband, and then probably around 7 a.m. or so, I'll start checking my phone. And that can be a really, really small but super important step in managing your stress. So I remember when I was working full-time, I would have awesome bosses. I love them all, but they tended to work in the middle of the night or late at night the night before, and I would wake up to these emails, and if you just roll over, the first thing you open your eyes, you grab your phone. What you're doing is you're bombarding your brain with all these stressful inputs, right? Whether it's work emails or something about, I don't know, something on Instagram that makes you feel less than, or makes you feel stressed about something, or makes you feel, I don't know. Social media has a tendency to do that, right? Like we're never enough, and we never have enough, and we never do enough, and it's just not a very productive, positive environment usually, and especially when you're just waking up, you want to make sure that you control your mood and your emotions for that day. So strong recommendation, have a solid morning routine, try to get up early. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. I know that's crazy early to a lot of people. But get up maybe half an hour earlier than you normally do so that you can start your day nice and peaceful. If you have a spiritual practice, or if you read the Bible or whatever it might be, try to take some time for that, and please keep your phone on silent mode for as long as humanly possible. And then also throughout your day, can you just, if you work in an office and you're sitting at your desk and you're just kind of typing away at emails or whatever, can you just like take a moment, put your hands on your lap and just like take a breath, right? And try to just do a quick body scan from like your toes, soles of your feet, ankles, calves, knees, thighs, hips, stomach, back, chest, shoulders, arms, head, top of head, right? Like it's so easy to just like take a moment and come into the present moment, but we tend to forget it if we don't make it a habit. So anyway, rambling a little bit, I feel like, but I hope that makes sense. But those are some of my recommendations for reducing your stress. And of course, if you're able to reduce other stressors, like it can be very hard. If you have a hysterical boss, like you can't control what other people do, but you can control how you react to it, right? And again, the phone thing is so important. And this goes into the first thing I mentioned about the sleep. Make sure that you don't spend your last waking minutes on your phone, because it's not going to make you sleep very good, and your brain is going to be all scrambled before you fall asleep. So try to put your phone away about an hour before going to bed, and do not check it until 2 or 3 hours if possible after you have woken up, after you've had your coffee, after you did your meditation or Bible reading or your spiritual practice, or just sitting there in silence, whatever it is, or working out, or whatever you prefer to do in the morning to start your day off right. The fourth thing, and one of the biggest things that I do, is exercise. So find something that works for you. So I know people with ankylosing spondylitis that they run, they do triathlons, that's great. I do not fall into one of those categories. So I do weightlifting, I do the Peloton, I ride the Peloton, and then I do a lot of low impact stuff. So I do Pilates, and then I do, I'm into like acrobatics and contortion and stuff like that. So I do a lot of hand balancing and things like that. that that's super fun to me. But if you thrive on kind of high intensity stuff, but you have a hard time running because of, you know, your joints, your back, whatever, you can try cycling, or, you know, maybe you like to swim or play tennis or whatever it is. Just find some sort of exercise type of exercise that works for you. I would recommend doing something strength-based and then also something flexibility, mobility related. So you have to do both. So I used to be really, really hardcore into like running. I was a long distance runner before I was diagnosed. Like 10 years ago, and I did a lot of weightlifting, never stretched anything. And then I got sick, and it was just, I had to stop all of that, and I had to completely rethink the way I move. So now I just do a lot of, still a lot of strength training, and I try to do some cardio on the Peloton, but I also do a lot of mobility work, a lot of active flexibility, a lot of functional strength training, and some, well, I wouldn't really call it calisthenics, but I try to be as strong as possible just in myself, right? And in the different ranges of motions of my joints. So I can do a whole nother video on how to train or how to like do flexibility and strength with ankylosing spondylitis. Let me know in the comments down below if that would be interesting to you at all. But when it comes to exercise, so strength and flexibility, super important. So I want to mention a couple of products here that I think that if you don't have them, you don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money, but they would be really, really helpful because they have been super helpful to me. The first is, drum roll, a gymnastics mat. I know this sounds crazy. Actually, you can see mine here in the background, the pink and purple one. So I used to be an avid yogi. I mean, I hold actually a 500-hour yoga teacher certification in yoga, but I don't practice much yoga anymore. But I used to always do, and I still use yoga mats for a lot of my workouts and my handstands and all that kind of stuff. But what I noticed was I had a really hard time stretching on my yoga mat because my joints are so sensitive, right? Whether it's my knees hurting, my SI joints hurting if I lay on my back, like my hips hurt if I lay on my side, my shoulders, like everything is just hurting. If I couldn't stretch the front of my hips, I couldn't do like a lunge because my knee would kill me on the yoga mat because it's too hard. So I bought this wonderful mat. It's 2 inches thick and it's for gymnastics. So it's called, I think, a tumbling mat or something. It's for gymnastics when, you know, the girls do all their like somersaults and whatever, right? When they practice all that kind of stuff. So I got this thing and it has changed my life. I got it right before Christmas. What is it? So like 2 months ago maybe. And it is just, I can't say good enough things about it, and I'll link it down below for you as well, because if you have joint pain and you try to stretch on a regular yoga mat on a hard surface, it's just terrible. So if you're like me and you have all kinds of, you know, just, I don't know, it feels like your bones are like on the floor, it's horrible. I would highly recommend this mat. So one thing that's super important when you train flexibility and when you stretch is that you feel safe and your body feels safe and okay. And if you then have a pinch in your knee, let's say that you're doing frog pose, and you feel pinching in your knees because the side of your knees are on a hard surface, then your body is just going to focus on that, and it's not going to allow you to actually stretch deeper because you're going to be too focused on the uncomfortable, painful sensation. So very important to be comfortable. Second thing, when it comes to like exercise tools, I guess, is foam rollers. So I have foam rollers, I have lacrosse balls, I have peanuts, which is like 2 lacrosse balls basically attached like this. It looks like a peanut, which is amazing if you have neck pain and like upper back pain. So you take that peanut and you place it, like your spine goes in between those little balls, and then you roll up and down. It is life-changing. I would highly recommend getting something like that. Lacrosse balls as well, really good to dig into your hips and your glutes and stuff. If you're super sensitive and completely new to it, however, I would start with the foam roller because it's a little bit more gentle. Then you can graduate to tennis balls. Then you can do the lacrosse balls. Then you can do the peanut. So if you don't want to buy a peanut, but you have tennis balls, you can put 2 tennis balls in a sock and tie it up. And that way you make your own little peanut. And then you just place your spine in between the tennis balls and you roll up and down and kind of any trigger points there. So really good for us with ankylosing spondylitis as well, because we tend to get a lot of stuff in our upper back and our neck and like really uncomfortable. And you know, the spine is a little angry, and so all the muscles around it come into support and get really angry and tight. And so anyway, highly recommend that as well. Another thing that is super helpful is a strap. So depending on your level of flexibility, sometimes it can be hard to stretch because you can't reach, you know, your different body parts. So having a strap can be super helpful. It can also be very helpful in helping you engage in certain muscles. So if you look at my Instagram, Elina from Sweden, if you don't follow me there already, I have a lot of stuff with a band. I do a lot of stuff with bands, right? So I usually, if I do like the straddle stretch where I sit on the floor with my legs out, I put it around my waist and then around my feet, and it just gives me that support that I can kind of, I can feel where I'm supposed to engage, right? So a strap is super helpful. It's also helpful for, you know, reaching your foot if you can't reach it with your hand, or, you know, you can also do the shoulder flossing with the strap, which is really good for us with AS as well. Actually, I have one right here. So this is one that's really, really nice. It's soft and it's elastic, which I like. And then it has these holes in it. So you can put your feet in there or your hands or whatever, and then you can use this for, you know, shoulder flossing, or you can use it for like straddle stretches or hamstring stretches or quad stretches or any stretches you can possibly think of. But I would highly recommend investing in a strap. I like the stretchy ones just because they are a bit more forgiving, and they can feel really good. And again, it's all about getting your body to feel safe and comfortable when you're stretching, right? So as the softer and more comfortable material we can use, the better. Then I want to talk about a couple of things that can sometimes be a little, I don't know, controversial, maybe not, but they're not very common at least. So it's wedges. So you can buy, I think it's Gayam, is that what they're called? That yoga brand. They sell this long, I used to have it when we lived in our old house before we sold everything we owned and moved to Sweden for a year. But they have this wedge, like this long foam wedge, that if you have problems with your hands and your wrists, right, from the AES, or if you have rheumatoid arthritis or just any sort of issue with your wrists, they make this wedge that you can place under the heel of your hand. So if you're doing planks or yoga or anything, you can use that to minimize the pressure on your wrist joint, which is really, really helpful. It's super simple. It doesn't weigh much at all. It's just like this long, and it's just like a wedge, a foam wedge, like a yoga block, but it's a wedge and much like this tall maybe, and then it just, yeah. Anyway, I'll post a link to that on my Amazon store as well, so you can check that out. And then speaking of wedges, there's also the squat wedges, which I personally love. So I have a really hard time with my hip mobility, and so doing squats is really difficult for me. And it can also be a little bit dangerous if you don't have the mobility to do a proper squat and then you load it. Then what usually happens is you get this little rounding in your low back, and that can cause a lot of, like I have disc herniations in my low back, and it's really not good for me to squat that way. And so while I work on my hip mobility, I really, really like working with the squat wedges. So basically it's these black little wedges made of rubber, not foam, because you're putting your whole body weight on them, so they're a little sturdier than that foam wedge for your wrists. But the squat wedges are rubber wedges that you place under your heels. And so you get elevation, so you're almost like on your tippy toes when you're squatting. And it's a game changer. So if you have trouble squatting, I would highly recommend trying those. You can also place, if you don't want to buy more things, you can just place weight plates or even dumbbells underneath your heels. Just make sure you don't use like massive dumbbells. And also I would recommend that they're not the round ones so that they roll away, but that you use the ones that are like the pentagon or hexagon or octagon or whatever they are, so that they're a little bit more stable. Like this. So make sure that they are not round, right? And then what you would do is just you place these, you have 2 of them, you place them on the floor, and then you just place your heel right here. And so your toes would be on the floor. So that's an alternative if you don't want to buy the squat wedges. And actually these dumbbells are also really good. They're like, I think I bought the 3, 5, and 8 pounds. It just comes as a set, and it's really, really good for doing strength training at home without having to go to the gym or anything. So I'll link these as well, because I think that might be helpful. I love these. I bought them like 6 months ago, and I use them all the time. And then the last thing on the exercise tools would be wrist support. So if your wrists are really bad, there are these gymnastics wrist supports called Tiger Paws. So you can try those as well if your wrists are like your limiting factor when it comes to exercise. They can be really hard on like planks, and especially if you do yoga and stuff, your wrists can really take a beating. So yeah, so I will put those, I'll link those as well, just so you have those. Okay, now on to the 5th and final strategy for how I manage my ankylosing spondylitis. So pain management, yes, this is an important one. And here, these are things that I do almost every single day. So I take hot baths, I foam roll, it's part of my pain management as well. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention in the exercise section, it kind of goes in both categories, but it's a Theragun or a massage gun of some kind, right? So they are amazing at helping with pain, releasing trigger points, and just they feel really, really good. So I would highly recommend investing in one. They typically run pretty pricey, a couple of $100 at least. But for me, we bought ours years ago, and it's such a good investment. It was like one of the best things we ever bought. My husband and I both love it. So highly recommend that if you're willing to spend that kind of money. But other than that, just do foam rolling and lacrosse balls and all that kind of stuff. That's fine too. But if you want to step it up a notch, then the Theragun. So that's also what I use for pain management. I will also say, so a very common thing and something that I struggled with a lot my first few years with AS was my SI joints. Oh, they were so excruciatingly painful because they were so inflamed, and I mentioned earlier in the video, I felt like my hips were like coming apart. If you have that, like I feel you and you know exactly what I'm talking about, like we understand each other. It is the worst feeling in the world. You can't sleep, you can't sit, you can't stand, you can't walk. It's awful. So what I found really helped with that was obviously physical therapy. Very, very important. I would highly recommend trying to find a good physical therapist if you haven't already. And then I actually wore an SI joint belt. So mine were so bad that I had to have an SI joint belt to kind of hold my hips together. It gave me such relief. I love that thing. So it's called the Sorolla, I think. Now they also have tons of different variations of it. So you can try different ones and see what feels better. They come in different sizes, so just be mindful of that as well. I'll link the one down here, that's the small, I think, but there's also medium and large, and I don't know all the sizes, but just make sure you get the right size. And also feel free to check out other brands, but I use the Sorolla one. I think that's how you say it. It was really, really good. I used it for months to just hold my hips together. I would wear it under my clothes and stuff at work. So I would recommend that for you as well if you're struggling with your SI joints. It can really bring a lot of relief. The second thing is Epsom salts for your bath. So if you have a bathtub, I would highly recommend using it at least a few times a week. So you can either just do, a bubble bath, that's great. But if you add Epsom salt, it can help you with the pain. So it can help remove like muscle aches, and it can help with sprains, things like that. And it's really, really, it's been such a good part of my routine. And I probably do Epsom salt baths 2 or 3 times a week. So I actually do baths every single day. Also because it's so cold here now, so I just need to warm up. Sometimes I do them multiple times a day, but I just put the salt in there a couple of times a week because it can actually have a laxative effect on you. So be a little bit careful because it's magnesium sulfate, and so it gets absorbed into the skin. And so if you start getting a lot of stomach upset if you're doing the Epsom salt, that might be why. So just something to be mindful of there. Look at him, snoozing by the fire. I don't know if you can see him, but he's right there. So baths are great. I also like using essential oils like eucalyptus and peppermint oil are my favorites, but I know like lemon or lavender or anything that you like, basically. I just really, really like the eucalyptus and the peppermint. I think they smell so good, and I just feel like revitalized from them. So I usually do the unscented bath salt, the Epsom salt, and I get the Dr. Teal's. You get like a whole 3 or 4 pound bag, I think, for like $6. I think it's the cheapest one there is. And I get the unscented, and then I just add essential oils myself. You can also get it scented, but it tends to be more expensive, and it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's cheaper to do just your own little mix, basically. And then I will also say Tiger Balm is another one that I swear by. So if you followed me on Instagram for a while, you know that I love Tiger Balm. I've posted about them so many times. So I use that a lot. They have all kinds of ointments and creams and whatever, but it's just so helpful for when like your back is hurting or you have a spasm or you know, your hip is messed up or whatever it might be, right? So yeah, so I'll link that as well. I think you can get it on Amazon. Let me see if I can find a link for it. Otherwise, you can also buy it at Target, grocery stores, CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid, whatever. So those are my top 5 management strategies and some products and tools that I find really, really helpful in managing my ankylosing spondylitis. I hope this helps you as well. If you have any questions and if you have any requests for future videos, feel free to drop them below. And don't forget to hit like if this video is helpful. And hit subscribe if you want more ankylosing spondylitis content. And I used to do a lot of classes on here, but I'm considering maybe switching to a bit of like more of a vlog kind of this type of style of video, but we'll see. We'll see. I haven't decided yet, but let me know in the comments what you would prefer. Another thing that I actually wanted to mention that I forgot, both for pain management and exercise, I don't know, it falls in multiple categories, but toe separators. So I've started getting a lot of issues in my feet, and these things have been life-changing. So I think, you know, especially as women wearing these tight, pointy shoes, I know I used to be guilty of it all the time early in my career, and high heels and everything. I remember I flew to Germany in high heels one time for work. I'm like, nowadays, I just live in my sneakers or my Birkenstocks. But so my feet hurt a lot these days, and I got these toe separators, and it is like such a relief for my feet. So if you have issues with your feet, that's something that I would recommend. Also, it can feel really good to use a lacrosse ball on your feet or the Theragun actually on a lower setting and just kind of do the soles of your feet. It's amazing. So take care of those feet of yours. They're carrying you your whole life. So yeah, I'll try to link those toe separators if I can find them as well, because I tried multiple brands, and the ones I have now are super soft, like medical grade silicone, which is, it feels so good, and you don't get that. I used to use the, what are they called? It's like a big brand for those toe separators, like I can't remember. Anyway, but they are very hard rubber, and they're kind of too intense for me. So the ones I have now, I can't remember what they're called, like Bodhi feet or something. I can't remember. I'll try to find it for you, and I'll put it in the description box below. But I would highly recommend something like that as well if you have trouble with your feet. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. Now I am going to cook something, I think, spending the day in the kitchen, since it is just snowing here. It's crazy. It's been snowing like the whole week. It's so beautiful. Oh, I love it. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, and if you have any video requests for my next video. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Mwah.